Hello, welcome back to Rev Endurance Sports and another edition of What is in Our Stand today. We're going to do that here in a second. We're going to start off on the workbench first, move over to the bike, and we're going to do a bottom bracket installation and a little bit of history as well on this bike. So before we go any further, if you would please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you know when I've posted another video. We're up to about 535 subscribers. Really want to get up to a million. I thought a million because I want to climb 1,000,000 feet this year. So anyway, that'll be in the description as well, my Strava profile. I meant 1,000 subscribers, although 1,000,000 would be really awesome. But who wants to hear me talk? What million people would want to hear me talk? Anyway, so let's get going with what we are doing today. And today we're going to install a bottom bracket, of RaceFace Bottom Bracket, and this is the crankset that's going on there, and it's a cinch style bottom bracket. And what we're going to need is the 8mm here with 50 Newton meters of torque. So on the outside of this, by the way, this is a self-extracting type of crankset. So you have out here, you have a 16mm cap, and then inside is an 8mm bolt. And that 8mm bolt is right there, and that threads into the bottom bracket. I'm sorry, the spindle here, like this. Okay, so this threads here, and that'll screw into that. Okay, so if you wanted to make sure that this outer cap is tight, you're definitely going to need a 16mm hex head, and then of course you'll need the 8. And as you unscrew the 8mm on the inside, this acts as a backstop, and as you start to unscrew this, it will come off of the spindle. All right, so put it back on. You just need your 8mm and a 50 Newton meter torque value set up. This is what goes inside the shell. And then you have your 2 bearing cups. So you have a bearing inside here, and it's on a carrier, and that'll go into the frame. Then you have your 2 dust seals, and you have an extra ring, which I will discuss here in just a second. And then you have your headset press, which also doubles as a bearing press for bottom brackets. Headset press, well, those are bearings as well. So you're pressing in bearings into a headset, old style. Now everything's just a drop-in bearing, but I've got a lot of variation in my customers, and plus my own bikes have headsets that are pressed into them. All right, so let's see if I have access to one. Yeah, so for example, this would be a Chris King headset that you would then press into, like, let's say a steel bike. And you have your bearings are actually in here, and one will go on the bottom of the headset, one will go on the head tube, and one on the top of the head tube, and your bearings are already there. And then you have your caps and your headset adjustment. Okay, so but that's the type of headset that you would typically press in with this. We're going to use this as a bottom bracket press. Okay, we're going to slowly migrate over to the bike itself. And, oh, actually, let me show you the little handout that comes in here. This is one of the best handouts I've seen on any of these bottom bracket installations. And, I mean, it's very self-explanatory. So, number one, you would measure your outside dimension. So that's called an OD. So you'd measure from here to here on your bottom bracket. There's number one. then the next thing you would do is, based on that measurement, you would have this little ring, which is here, and it tells you if you have an 89.5 external dimension here, this measurement, then you do not use it. But you do use it, actually, my bad, this bearing, or this little one here. That one you would use if you have a 92. And that's what we have on this one. So I've already set this up. Okay, so there it is, 92. Then you would grease these certain parts. We're going to do that. Then you would hand press. And then the last thing is you would press in the, and this looks very familiar, doesn't it? You would use this press to press in that bearing and that bearing, right? So number 4, number 4. You would hand press this part here, this shell here. And then this last ring, or this last spacer, tells you right here, if your external dimension is at 89.5, you would use this. If it's 92, which is what this bike is, you don't use this. So you leave that off of your installation. And this little one here, I've already prepped, because on a 92, we're going to use it. Okay, so let's move over to the bike so that we can do this installation. And as you can see, the inside has already been cleaned out. That area has been degreased, and any type of dirt or anything has been taken out so that we can start with fresh grease. And so that's what we're going to do now. We are going to just grease this inside here on both sides. And then I also grease the little carrier. And there's never too much, by the way. You can put all this grease on here, and when you press in the bearing, it really does help you know when the bearing's fully seated, because it'll start to come out. So if you press this in, you'll see it coming out of here, and that's good, because you want to make sure that it's fully seated, and this little lip is going to be up against the frame. All right. So RaceFace Crankset, RaceFace Bottom Bracket, everything is the way it's supposed to be. So we just press that in by hand. All right, so that's in there. Now we're going to take so what you'll notice is on these adapters, this one fits in right on that notch there. Okay, so put that guy through there. Then you put this on the other side. Okay. And now once everything is aligned, then you start threading this guy in carefully, and hopefully it's going in straight. As long as that's going in straight, now you'll start to see the grease coming out from the edges. There it is. See, it starts to come out, and then you push just a little bit more and you're good. All right. Okay, open that up. So you've pressed one in. Now we are going to press the other one in, and I'm going to swing the bike around a little bit so that my cameraman can get behind or in front of me, and we're going to do the same thing now. So now we're on the non-drive side. Now, funny thing is, whenever I'm doing bottom brackets and bearings and things like that for bottom brackets, almost always what I find is the non-drive side goes bad first. I wish I knew why, and if anyone can make a comment down below. It looks like we're going to have to reset this a little bit further out. So I can get this thing to snap in somewhere. So you want to hear that snap in. Because you don't want to run out of, well, there it goes. It snapped in. Okay. So now you slowly press that in. And you'll see, once again, you'll start to see the grease start coming out of the sides. And you give it just a little more, and then you're done. All right, so once you've got that in, it is always wise to just check and make sure you didn't crush the bearing in any way. And you'll notice if you come in really close, it's really quiet. So you didn't crush the bearing. It rolls nice and easy. And that's very, very important. All right, next step is you are now going to mount the crankset. So just like everything else, grease, 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 lube everything. And this one comes in from the non-drive side. And you want to make sure that you're putting in your dust seal, and then you go in from the non-drive side. There it is. Then you have your drive side, and this is always a little bit tricky because as you're trying to put on this side, you're trying to give it some type of pressure, but you don't want the other side to fall out. So remember, 180 out. Although if you want to play tricks on your friends, that's a really fun trick to do. So we're hoping that you can thread this guy on here. Without having to push too much so that it doesn't come out the other side, so that the non-drive side doesn't come out. So there we go. We got it on there. And if you recall from the very first part of the video, you want to torque this on to 50 Newton meters. Now what I do is before I get all the way up to 50, I start checking to see if it's starting to bind, because I've had that before. So before going all the way to 50 Newton meters, I check and make sure that the crankset is not bound up, because then it's probably either you got the wrong spacers on there or you put too many spacers. And there it is. So we've got 50 Newton meters now. You can hear the wrench break, so we're good. And that's it. That's installed. So that's how you install a RaceFace bottom bracket on a 92 external BB, external measurement BB. And those are the spacers that are required. Those are the dust seals that are required and the torque value required. And the crankset's nice and smooth. Originally, the customer had complained that there was some creaking noises, so he would take it out, clean it, put it back in, and after a few short rides, he was having creaking noises again. When I inspected it, it was definitely that the bearings were bad. The other reason the bike came in was for shifting issues. So we've done a warranty on the rear derailleur. So we've got a new rear derailleur. We've also got a new cassette. And this cassette was actually featured in a different video where I talked about cassette wear. So I'll link that in the description as well. So new cassette, new chain, new rear derailleur, new bottom bracket. This bike is going to ride like a dream for the gentleman. So thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate every one of you who has subscribed. I appreciate your time and your attention. Please subscribe. Please like and share the video with friends. Hit that notification bell. And in the meantime, we'll see you up the road.